At 95, Clint Eastwood is finally opening up about his past and what shaped the way he sees people like Rob Reiner today. Born Clinton Eastwood Jr. on May 31, 1930 in San Francisco, he entered the world during the Great Depression, a time when just getting by was the main goal. His family moved all over California chasing jobs, and that kind of unstable childhood built a tough independence in him. It taught him early to keep his feelings to himself and stay sharp. Clint wasn't the loud or showy type growing up. He stayed quiet, always watching, always learning, and only spoke when it counted. That calm, observant nature became one of his trademarks on screen later in life. Music became his escape. He had a deep love for jazz and the piano, and that connection shaped his sense of rhythm, timing, and mood, traits that would later define his filmmaking style. Everything about Clint's directing, simple, precise, no wasted motion, came straight from that musical rhythm pulsing inside him. After high school, there wasn't any shortcut to fame waiting for him. Clint worked real grinding jobs: lifeguard, lumberjack, gas station attendant, standing shoulder to shoulder with regular working folks. That's where he learned real grit and respect for hard work, lessons that never left him. Hollywood wasn't kind at first either. After serving in the U.S. Army, he stumbled into acting almost by chance. Universal Pictures signed him in the mid-1950s, but dropped him just as fast. Studio execs criticized everything. They said his look was off, his voice too flat, and that he didn't have the it factor. But Clint didn't back down. He just kept moving forward. Those harsh words were meant to break him, but instead they built him stronger than ever. Clint stayed cool, kept training, took whatever roles came his way, and refused to become some studio's puppet. His patience finally paid off in 1959 when he landed Rawhide, playing Rowdy Yates for 8 long seasons. The checks were steady, but deep down, Clint felt trapped, like his creativity was stuck behind bars. So he made a bold move. He walked away from American TV and took a wild leap into Italian cinema. And that risk changed Hollywood forever. Then came Sergio Leone's game-changing Dollars trilogy, a fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Those films didn't just save Clint's career, they turned him into a living legend. They didn't follow the rules, they broke them. The Western genre would never look the same again. Clint's Man with No Name wasn't your typical loud, perfect cowboy. He barely talked, hardly moved, but every look, every pause, every squint, it all spoke volumes. That calm, ice-cold stare and slow, deliberate walk told you everything you needed to know. He wasn't the clean-cut hero the world was used to, and that's exactly what made him unforgettable. Clint completely redefined what strength and masculinity looked like on screen. No fancy words, no showing off, no need to prove anything. His power came from silence, confidence, and that quiet tension that made audiences hold their breath. Viewers felt it the moment he appeared on screen. The success of those movies didn't just make Clint Eastwood famous, it gave him control. When Clint returned to Hollywood in the late 1960s and early 1970s, he wasn't asking anyone for permission. He was running the show. Movies like Dirty Harry turned him into pure box office fire. His character, Harry Callahan, was raw, direct, and unfiltered, and audiences couldn't stop debating him. Some people saw him as a voice for public frustration, while others said he went too far. But Clint didn't back down for a second. He made it clear. His characters weren't messages or slogans, they were real, flawed people trying to survive in a messy world. What caught critics off guard was just how versatile he really was. Clint wasn't stuck in one lane. He jumped between westerns, action films, thrillers, dramas, and even comedies with ease. He did it all, and he made it look effortless. Movies like Play Misty for Me, High Plains Drifter, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Every Which Way But Loose, and Escape from Alcatraz proved he was more than just a tough guy. He was a creative force, always evolving. Behind the camera, Clint was quietly studying, observing, and learning how to make movies his own way. When he finally stepped fully into directing, his style hit different. It was clean, bold, and confident. He didn't waste time with endless takes or heavy lighting setups. He trusted his actors, used natural light, and let the story move naturally. He believed in letting a scene breathe, giving emotions room to hit the audience when they were least expecting it. His films went deep, tackling themes like aging, regret, redemption, and the weight of human choices. They weren't flashy or over the top, but they packed an emotional punch that lingered long after the credits rolled. Hollywood couldn't look the other way anymore. Unforgiven changed everything. The film earned Clint Eastwood Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture, officially sealing his place as one of the greats. From that moment on, he wasn't just a movie star, he was a full-blown filmmaking powerhouse, and he didn't slow down for a second. He followed it up with hit after hit. Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Letters from Iwo Jima, Gran Torino, Changeling, and American Sniper. Each film pushed his legacy even higher and proved that Clint's creative fire only got stronger with time. The recognition wasn't just in the US, Europe showed major love too. He earned 3 César Awards, a huge honor that showed his storytelling touched audiences far beyond Hollywood. Then came the AFI Life Achievement Award, one of the most iconic honors in the film world, proving Clint Eastwood didn't just appear in movie history, he helped write it. By the early 2000s, Clint's global status was locked in when the Venice Film Festival awarded him the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, one of the most prestigious awards in all of cinema. That wasn't just about one film or one success, it was a tribute to decades of unforgettable work built on emotional depth, moral complexity, and a directing style so sharp it kept evolving with age. And France didn't just applaud him, they celebrated him like one of their own. In 1994, the nation that treats film as fine art made Clint a commander in their Order of Arts and Letters, honoring how deeply his work influenced culture far beyond America. Then, in 2007, they took it even higher, presenting him with the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian distinction. Clint Eastwood's legacy was never tied to just one country or one era. It kept growing, reshaping cinema across the entire world. But behind all the fame and awards, one of the most complex chapters of his life was his marriage to Margaret Maggie Johnson. They first crossed paths in 1953 when Clint was broke, unknown, and fighting his way through life with no guarantees. Back then, he was hustling through any job he could get, lifeguard, construction worker, you name it, while chasing an acting dream that kept slipping away. Maggie, on the other hand, was calm, grounded, and thoughtful, the steady energy Clint didn't even know he needed. She brought peace to a life that was pure chaos. The two tied the knot on December 19, 1953, starting a marriage that would stretch over 3 long, challenging decades. In those early years, money was tight and stress was real. Hollywood success still felt like a faraway dream. Through all the ups and downs, Maggie stayed loyal and steady, carrying the emotional load while Clint took one rejection after another. Then, when Rawhide finally took off in 1959, everything changed overnight.
As Clint's star exploded with Sergio Leone's Man with No Name films and later Dirty Harry, the marriage came under serious strain. The spotlight didn't just transform his career, it completely reshaped their lives. Success brought constant noise, attention, and expectations, and that pressure weighed heavy on their relationship. Maggie always stayed far away from the Hollywood spotlight, choosing peace and privacy over red carpets and constant attention. She never wanted the flashing cameras or the public drama. She built her life quietly, far from the noise. But as Clint's fame skyrocketed, the gap between his high-profile world and Maggie's calm, private life only grew wider with time. Their marriage was anything but simple. Long periods apart became normal, and Clint later admitted he hadn't always been faithful during those years. Still, they remained legally married for decades, not out of denial, but because their bond was complicated. It was built on duty, shared history, and the deep sense of responsibility they both felt toward their family. Together, they raised 2 children who each found their own path. Their son, Kyle Eastwood, born in 1968, built an impressive career as a jazz musician, while their daughter, Allison Eastwood, born in 1972, stepped confidently into acting and filmmaking. Through all the Hollywood chaos, Maggie worked hard to keep things steady. She focused on creating a sense of normalcy and protecting their kids from the whirlwind surrounding Clint's fame. After 25 years together, Maggie and Clint officially separated in 1978, marking the end of a long and complex partnership. But even then, things didn't wrap up quickly. Their divorce wasn't finalized until 1984, showing just how deeply their lives, emotions, and finances were intertwined. When the split finally became official, it made headlines across Hollywood. Maggie was there long before the fame ever hit. She stood by Clint through the grind, faced the pressure when it came crashing in, and helped raise their kids far away from Hollywood's chaos. Their relationship wasn't flawless, but it deeply shaped how Clint viewed family, loyalty, and the true cost of chasing greatness. Now, at 95, Clint Eastwood speaks with a rare kind of honesty. He doesn't need to impress anyone or sugarcoat anything anymore. After more than 70 years in Hollywood, he's not just looking back on his own journey, he's studying how the whole industry is transformed and how people like Rob Reiner came to symbolize those changes. It's all seen through Clint's hard-earned lens of wisdom, mistakes, and lessons learned the long way. So when Clint Eastwood is asked about Rob Reiner, you won't hear anger or bitterness in his voice. There's no cheap talk, no grudges, just calm reflection. His tone stays measured, grounded, and thoughtful, shaped by decades of experience and perspective. Deep down, Clint believes that Hollywood has drifted from what it used to stand for, its roots in storytelling, truth, and heart. "I've never had a problem with Rob as a filmmaker," Eastwood says plainly. "He's talented. You don't make the movies he's made without understanding character and timing." Clint gives credit where it's deserved, no hesitation, no ego. He still holds respect for Reiner's early films, the ones that connected through humor, emotion, and genuine human moments. Clint Eastwood believes stories are supposed to bring people together, not divide them into sides. What really bothers him isn't just Rob Reiner, it's the change that's taken over the whole industry. Somewhere along the way, the business stopped being about curiosity, Clint reflects. It became about certainty, and certainty is dangerous in art. That one line sums up how he sees the modern entertainment world, too focused on being right and not focused enough on exploring what's real. In Clint's eyes, Rob Reiner now represents a Hollywood circle that struggles with disagreement, where having strong opinions often gets confused with having the moral high ground. Clint sees things differently. He draws a clear line between that mindset and his own. "I never thought my job was to tell people what to think," he says. "My job was to show people who they are." Even in his most talked about films, whether gritty westerns, war dramas, or quiet character studies, Clint never tried to preach. He let the audience decide for themselves what to take away. That trust in people's intelligence is what made his storytelling stand out. According to Clint, the real difference between him and Rob Reiner isn't politics, it's philosophy. Rob wants to win arguments, he says.
I want to ask questions. Clint points back to a time when Hollywood thrived on creative tension, when artists with totally different ideas could still work together without trying to change each other's minds. There was a time when you could disagree and still respect each other, he remembers. But today, Clint says, disagreement often gets treated like a personal flaw instead of a chance to grow. In his view, Reiner's outspoken activism reflects a bigger shift, a trend where entertainers sometimes mistake being the loudest for being the most virtuous, and certainty for truth. Clint Eastwood speaks from a lifetime of experience, and he's not angry, just honest. After decades in the game, he believes Hollywood has lost something vital. Moral certainty closes doors that storytelling should leave open, he says, almost like a warning rather than a complaint. For Clint, real art should make people think, not just agree. He's careful not to play the victim either. Nobody's silencing me, he says calmly. I've had my say. What truly concerns him isn't himself. It's the new generation of filmmakers trying to find their voice in a world full of unspoken rules and approved opinions. They're scared to be honest, he admits, and that fear worries him more than anything. To Clint, fear is the enemy of creativity. Fear has never made good art, he says, bluntly, without hesitation. In his mind, true storytelling needs courage to question, to risk, to be misunderstood, and he's afraid that courage is fading fast in modern Hollywood. When asked if Rob Reiner even hears these kinds of critiques, Clint takes a long pause. I don't know, he finally says. People hear what they want to hear, but he makes one thing crystal clear. This isn't about personal attacks or grudges, it's bigger than that. This is about a system, he explains, one that rewards outrage over understanding. Clint doesn't blame Reiner for creating that system, but he points out that Reiner seems perfectly comfortable living within it. Life's too short for grudges, Clint says with a quiet conviction. At this point in his life, what matters most to him isn't trophies or box office numbers, it's freedom. The freedom to tell stories with honesty, without filters or fear of what people might think. I'd rather make a movie that makes people uncomfortable than one that tells them they're perfect, he admits with a small grin, letting that truth hang in the air. Clint Eastwood's perspective on Rob Reiner isn't fiery or explosive, it's something deeper, more reflective. It's the quiet sadness of a filmmaker watching an industry he loves trade curiosity for conformity. Hollywood used to be a place where outsiders belonged, he says. Now everyone's trying to prove they're part of the crowd. To Clint, that change means more than any argument, any name, or any debate ever could. It's about the soul of storytelling, the courage to be different in a world that keeps pushing for sameness. At 95, his message isn't about criticism, it's about freedom, truth, and the need for honesty in art. If you felt connected to this story and want to see more deep dives like this one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of Clint's take on Hollywood today? Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.